Hey guys, welcome back to Maelstrom Gaming Studios. I'm Craig, and today we're going to do a quick Meta Watch Friday. So as you guys know, GW puts out their Meta Watch video, I think it's twice a month or something like that, on Thursdays. They have an article, a video. I have looked and watched that, so we're going to kind of go into that, discuss all of the win rates of the army, see how things are shaking up for the early half of Arks of Omen. Actually, it's not even half, the early weeks of Arks of Omen. So that sounds good. Do like and subscribe to stay up to date on all of our content here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios. If you want to help us support the channel just a little bit more, we do have an Etsy shop. You can buy some things there. We do have channel membership. Thank you, members, for supporting us. And in a new announcement, we'll put that here, we now have an Element Games League. So if you are now in the UK, maybe other parts of Europe too, but specifically UK, you want to support us, but you don't want to buy anything from us, but you just, you want to help us out a little bit. I suggest getting your models over at Element Games. Use our link down below or in all of our future videos, and hopefully some of the past ones I'll remember to put it in there. But use that link. A small chunk of that profit will go back towards us and just help support the channel. It'd be really appreciated. So now, with all that out of the way, let's dive into today's video. Like I said, GW on Thursday put out a Meta Watch analysis video and article. They have got the win rates for everything. In the video, they talked a little bit about maybe not every single faction, but about various factions and how they're doing. I'm going to take a look at them and kind of just give you my thoughts on them. We'll just review. I don't want to take too long on this, but just provide you guys with an update. So let's first start with the bottom two armies. There are two armies that are clearly underperforming in the overall scale of things, and that is the Deathwatch and the Adeptus Mechanicus. The Deathwatch are really down there at a 36% win rate, and this comes to two factors that I see and can understand from looking. The first one being, with the changes to doctrines, the changes to the points and everything, Deathwatch don't do anything special. Yes, they have some death bolter or special Deathwatch bolter ammunition, but that's nothing compared to what other factions get. Deathwatch are just, they're not good enough to be an army on their own. And I kind of say this goes back to, I don't think Deathwatch should be their own individual faction. I think Deathwatch should not be a codex and should be put into the Inquisition Codex and make it, if you play Imperium, you can take a Deathwatch, kill team and make it be up to 10 Marines or up to 5 Marines, and they can be loaded out with XYZ. And that's really how the Deathwatch should be. They should never have been a full-scale army, which really does, they're just not special when you give every other faction everything that they can for the most part. So I think it comes down to that and the fact that, again, probably not a lot of people are playing their Deathwatch just because every other Space Marine army or just army in general is more attractive to play than the Deathwatch right now. The AdMech coming in at 44%. I believe before Arks of Omen they were at like 40%? Were they 35 or 40%? So maybe they've taken a little bit of a leg up. GW basically reverted their codex back to where it was at its maximum potential, almost, not entirely, but almost there. Gave more point cuts, something still point increases. Stratagems are almost all back to the way they were, but there is one key thing that they are not accounting for that really made AdMech powerful. AdMech are my number 2 army. You guys probably haven't seen them much on the channel because I'm always playing Tyranids. I do want to get into playing AdMech a little bit more, just to provide some more variety on the channel. I love playing my Tyranids, but I do like my AdMech, and they have been a bit put on the shelf in 9th edition since really taking over on this channel with Tyranids. Anyway, the big issue with AdMech, coming from someone who played them when they were at their peak, is the CP. AdMech really power scale with giving every character every sergeant their special trait, not just warlord traits and relics. Well, I guess they are technically warlord traits and relics, but the fact that you can give those to sergeants was what made them so powerful. You can give your sergeant of your 20-man block of guys fall back and shoot. So if you get charged with your big block of infantry to someone trying to tie them up, they just fall back and shoot and they do just fine. You want to give your infiltrator sergeant or your ruststalker sergeant the bonuses in melee with a special warlord trait or a relic, but typically a warlord trait there. You could, but those cost CP. AdMech typically started the game with 6 CP, which back when we had 12, which is, I mean, that's still a lot of CP, but then they proceeded to use all those CP to make the rest of their army that much better. That's what scaled AdMech out of control. Now they have to pick between the stratagems and the pre-game bonuses. It just, they're missing out on that punch that made them so lethal. So I don't know if GW in the chapter approved. It's gonna sound weird, but I think they need to just give them, here is 3 CP you can use for pre-game spending. AdMech just get that as part of the list. Maybe you have to take, I don't know, I don't know what the case would be, but if you gave AdMech just 3 more CP to spend pre-game on those extra warlord traits and relics, you're gonna see AdMech's win rate probably pop back up to the 50%, maybe even a little higher. That's what I say. I think that's their biggest issue right now. So we're going to the lower third. So these are win rates of 45% to 47%. So not horrible by any means, but you know, they could use just maybe a little bump, and maybe they will eventually, or they'll just level out. So first off, we have, well, I'll just go in order. So Chaos Marines, they got hurt a lot with Armor of Contempt getting abolished and Abaddon being nerfed, at least point-wise, a lot, and not being able to take him in every detachment if you wanted to. You have to play him in Black Legion. So I haven't broken it up, but I'm sure you could break up the individual legions of Chaos and see where they go. I'm sure some of them are still much better than others, but as a whole, the Chaos Space Marine staying at 46%, you know, I kind of expected it. They took a huge nerf in Armor of Contempt going away, and they didn't gain anything. Sisters also, for the exact same reason, they lost Armor of Contempt, didn't really gain anything, maybe took a few other points nerfs here and there, and their secondaries got a little bit worse. So in all, kind of expected it from the Sisters to go from their high, I think they were what, 55%, 56%, down to 45%. So yeah, it's tough. That Armor Contempt is such a big swing on some of these armies. We also have the Blood Angels coming at 45%, which is low. They did just win, I believe, was it a major or a GT recently, starting Arks of Omen. So, I mean, obviously you can still play with them, and that's probably why they have a 45%. Is there people who can still win, but maybe, you know, newer people are playing Marines, newer players playing Marines probably aren't as good as a whole, and I bet they still have a bit of a fixed way you have to play them to do really well. So Blood Angels there. Thousand Suns is the other one. Yeah, I anticipated them to be pretty low. Honestly, they're higher than I thought they would be. I would be thinking I guess they're 46%. It's still not great, but I was expecting to be in the bottom 3. They're close, but they're not there. Just because Armor of Contempt, again, was such a huge deal to them, and they didn't gain anything. They just lost Armor of Contempt. The secondaries got changed maybe slightly for the worse, but not by much. They got all their buffs pre-Armor of Contempt going away, so they had those, but yeah, they really missed that more than anything. And then I guess I didn't mention the Space Marines as a whole. Again, didn't break them out into individual chapters here, but I'm sure you could look at things like Salamanders and Iron Hands being really high, and then maybe ones like White Scars and Ultramarines being not as high. I don't really know how the breakout is. I just know Iron Hands are probably pretty dang good right now. So I'm sure their win rate individually is pretty high. But if you want to know I'm sure you can find a Marine channel or something that breaks out all of those individually. I just want to give you the basics here. So now let's go to the middle pack. And this is, I think, my favorite section of this whole thing, is to show just how many armies are sitting right there in the middle of the mix. Yes, there's a lot of armies at 40K, but between 48 and 51%, honestly, if you could get all of the armies in this range, that would be perfect. It's going to be really hard, but they're close. The Death Guard, the Drukhari, Knights, Space Wolves, Necrons, Tyranids, Grey Knights, Tau, Asuryani, Leagues of Votann, and Astra Militarum, all sitting within 48 to 51% is great. Really, really good. Now, some ones I will talk about, I'm not going to talk about every single one individually, but some ones that kind of surprised me. Death Guard, Grey Knights are two of them that I expected to also be a lot lower with the last list. They both were armies that hugely benefited from Armor of Contempt, but I guess in the same way, with the Armor of Contempt going away, they also benefited because they did get some point reductions. Grey Knight specifically got some point reductions. Death Guard secondaries got better. So, you know, people are still making them work, which is great. I'm happy to see them doing well. My buddy Matt, you might have seen him on the channel. He's been in some of the practice live streams. He's got his Death Guard army. Finally, it's fully painted, 2,000 points. So hopefully we'll have a battle report, Tyranids versus Death Guard soon. But I mean, his Death Guard they're still good. So I'm glad that they are that way. Drukhari, yeah. Imperial Knights is lower than I thought, which is shocking. They were a pretty good one before, and I don't see reasons why they would be bad, other than more armies are bringing bigger guns to the game, which might just counter them in general. But why aren't Chaos Knights here? So that's an interesting one. Votann, glad to see they're still doing well after taking another sizable round of nerfs. I think the Arks of Omen detachment really helps you there. Also, being a small army, I'm sure there's only a couple builds that work really well with them. The Astra Militarum, I'm surprised that they're this low. If I'm being honest, I expected them to be in the higher, like 55 plus win rate. They just have so many tricks and combos, and they are the only codex, besides World Leaders, which aren't in here, only codex that is untuned, essentially. I mean, this one came out, it's still hot. There's ways to do absurd amounts of things, but 51% only is an interesting thing. And finally, I will talk about Tyranids. We'll talk about Tyranids more later. 50%. Perfect. Honestly, yes, there are some things I still don't like in the codex, but 50% is, I'm happy with that right there. So now let's go to the upper level performers. So this is 53% to 55%. This is the, you know, they're in our window. Maybe they're just a little hot. If they could come down, great, but they're still within that window. And like I said, I'm interested to why Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights are different. Is it a case of secondaries? Is there something else going on? Are people just gravitating towards Chaos Knights because they like them more? I don't know. If you are a Knight player, Chaos or Imperial, is there a reason why one might be higher than the other? Don't know. Glad to see Demons are still doing well. They did take some nerfs that people were freaking out about a little bit with the Flamers, but, you know, 54% off the backs of Khorne and Be'lakor is, you know, it's good. It's good. I'm glad. Ynnari, I expect them to be good. I know they have a pretty small player count, GW mentioned, so, I mean, for me, I have no real knowledge of Ynnari, but you can basically take the best things you like of Harlequins, Eldar, and Dark Eldar and put them into one army. So I figured people out there who really know their stuff can make a powerful army out of there. So 55% makes sense to me. Orcs, skip those things. As a little bit of a running joke here, we know nothing about orcs on this channel. All the armies I claim to have some knowledge with, a baseline understanding. I just don't know orcs well. Not a lot of people play them in our area. There are not a lot of battle reports. Not that I have time to watch many battle reports anymore, but I just don't know orcs. So I'm glad they're doing 53% well. So good for you, orcs. I'm happy. Finally, Harlequins, absolutely mind-boggling that they are still 55%. It is and it's not. It shows you just how dang good the Codex was when their entire army invuln went from 4 up to a 5 up, which is a huge reduction, and they're still kicking butt. Harlequins are my least favorite army to play against. They're so good, and the people who play them are often really smart and really good. So 55%, they're dang Harlequins. You just keep doing it. So that's there. And finally, we have our top level performers. These are the ones that GW might need to take some changes to come balanced data slate. So first off, let's go from 56%. We have the Custodes. 56 is not too bad. They did mention in the video that this is the most played faction competitively so far in Arks of Omen. Makes sense because if you bought that Christmas box and a combat patrol, you have a really competitive Custodes army for not a lot of money. Very simple to get it painted and ready to go if you don't want to do too crazy on the detail. 56% is good. They took some big buffs. They got OBSEC back on their Terminators, which is a great bit. Some of the stratagems got unnerfed. Some of them, not all of them. And they were already good to begin with. So yeah, and Armor Contempt going away makes all their weapons that much scarier, for sure. Dark Angels coming at 57%. This, I would argue, is the true most powerful army. We'll talk about the other one later, but they really benefited from the point decreases, other Armor of Contempt going away because then their weapons just get every bit better, and then their ability just to make a good army is what they were to begin with. Whether your Terminators are, I believe the Terminators got cheaper, their bikes got cheaper, they can just build a fast, powerful hitting army. I haven't played against them in the new iteration, but before they were good. So I can't imagine seeing why they wouldn't be one of the better ones. Their plasma, not bad. But yeah, again, they're just a good army. Sorry I can't give too many more details, but I'm glad to see a Space Marine chapter doing good, but not too absurdly good. And finally, we have the Gene Stealer Gene Stealer cults. Now they also mentioned that this had one of, if not the lowest played player count in Arks of Omen. I don't remember if it was the lowest or like the bottom three, but it was one of the lowest player counts. And they have a 58% win rate. And that makes perfect sense to me. The changes they made in Arks of Omen to the Gene Stealer cult, or to the game in general, made Gene Stealer cult so good in the right hands. The detachment changes was huge for them. The point decreases, while there weren't a ton of them, they were great. Armor of Contempt going away was the biggest thing, I think. Gene Stealer Cult have a ton of AP-1 and AP-2 weapons, whether it's in shooting or melee. All of that getting reduced really hurt them in the damage output. Now it's just better. Couple that with secondaries that they have getting better, specifically behind enemy lines, gaining CP when you do it with a troop choice. That's all Gene Stealer Cult bring our troop choices. You're basically giving Gene Stealer Cult, on top of the mission ones, 3 CP every turn. Maybe not in the first one, but everything else, they're getting an extra CP every game compared to everybody else regularly. And their secondaries, again, easy to do. They are fragile and squishy, and if you don't play them right, they will get obliterated. But with the extra CP, with the limitations on your Force Arc getting thrown out the window for the most part, and the better secondaries, it is no wonder the Gene Stealer Cult are playing at such a high level. I don't think there's really a way you can tone them down in the balanced data slate. I think they're just going to stay that way. I need to bring out my Gene Stealer Cult. I've been talking about my list and I haven't really showed it off yet, so I'll add it to the list of things I need to do. But great to see the Gene Stealer Cult playing at such a high level. Finally, let's just talk about it a little bit, and I'll go into a little bit more tiered discussion here. Don't want to ramble too much. So like I said, it's great to see so many factions fall within that 50% plus or minus 5% range. And I know that's what GW said they strive to get you there, and they just have a few above and a few below. which, I mean, it's great for where it has been. And none of those, well, I would say none of the above and below are oppressively there. Maybe you could agree with it, but poor Deathwatch getting left in the window there, or left in the wind there. It makes sense. Again, everything has been released now for 40K. World Leaders and Imperial Guard still have to be toned. Whatever the case that might be, maybe there isn't going to be anything in terms of the tuning for that. So they've had many years to slowly shave down books or tune books up as they need to. And I think they've got a really good balanced meta. It's unfortunate in probably less than 6 months, 10th editions come along and take what they've been working on and throw it out the window. Hopefully, if the rumors are true and indexes are likely to come, if it is indexes, it should be a pretty balanced state. If I remember right, outside of some weird niche things that happened when 8th edition indexes came out, they were pretty balanced and they were pretty simple to play. There were some things like, oh, you could bring 120 of these tiny models and it's only a 4th year army. Razorwing Flock, if I remember right. But they quickly fixed those rules. GW's probably learned from that. So I envision 10th edition to be balanced. But it's great to, it's a good and bad to have such a nice balanced edition just leaving, sunsetting later this year. In terms of Tyranids perspective, this is great seeing 50%, and it kind of goes back to what I've been feeling and what I've said from the very beginning when playing Tyranids. Tyranids are such a deep codex. Behind Space Marines, I think Tyranids are the biggest codex out there. I can't think of one. You could argue that Necrons have a big codex too, but no, Tyranids are the second biggest codex behind Space Marines. They have so many options in every single slot, so many HQs, not just, oh, Space Marines, here's my 4 different captains. No, every single one of our HQs is functionally different and has a different role. All of our elites are that way. Our troops more or less are that way. Fast attack, the moving the Trigons and Molochs into fast attack was a great move for the Tyranid Codex, and it really gives you reasons to use the fast attack. And the heavy support is huge as well. We don't have a plastic Lord of War yet, but it's just, there's everything. You have everything you could need with the Tyranid Codex. And with this Codex being so good, and yes, they've toned down a lot of things, our Zoanthropes, our Raveners, and our Flying Hive Tyrants specifically are not what they used to be. Oh, they are, but they're just more expensive for what they used to be. It really opens up the world to every option. And so many people have been giving me, oh, is this list going to do well? This list going to do well? And I've been saying the same thing. I think every list you come up with now has a good chance. Just, you got to use the tools we have in terms of the stratagems and the tactics for using your synaptic imperatives and your buffs and your chaining of psychic powers. It just, there's so many tools you can make Tyranids good. Are the days of the Tyranids gone where this one list is better than everything else? I think so. People have been telling me, oh, my Behemoth monster mashes are working really well. Oh, my Leviathan monster mashes, my Gorgon swarms, my Chronos heavy support shooting, my Chronos warrior spam has been doing well. There's just so many people giving me lists saying these are doing well. And yes, people are struggling with some lists. Secondaries are a tricky thing we have to play around, but this codex is in a perfect spot right now. I wish Raveners had some better use. They're just too expensive right now. And yes, my High Fleet Kraken is not looking as nice as it used to, but I think there's a way you can still make Kraken do wonders in the meta. So I'm happy for Tyranids. I think the meta is looking to be in a really good place. Tomorrow, if you're watching this Friday, tomorrow, yes, will be my first tournament with the Tyranids. I am bringing a Behemoth list. It's a very melee focused list. Lots of Hormigons, lots of Carnifexes, lots of big bugs, Tyrants, everything. We're going to see how it does. I'm not expecting to go 3-0, but if I can, I would love it. And I will stay tuned, or I should say, stay tuned, and I will have a report on that tournament as well as the list analysis and everything in the future. Yeah, so looking forward to that and see how the meta in person, besides just playing with a few friends here and there for battle reports, shakes out. That's all we got. Thank you guys for watching. Let us know in the comments what you think of the meta. Have you been observing that as a Tyranid player or as another player? Has this seemed pretty balanced, or are there some one-sided situations going on? So far, it seems like it's a pretty balanced set of armies right now. So love to hear what other people are saying. Put those down in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. Check out that Elements game link that is there now in the description. Thank you, members, and we'll see you next time here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios.